Yo, everybody. Happy Friday morning. I'm your host, Shad Dales, TDR's Trade to Black podcast. What a week it was in Washington this week. I'm sure a lot of you got a chance to review some of the content that we produced, and I don't know what we take away from that other than the fact that I think a lot of members from Congress are reporting at the Senate and vice versa. But you know what? Try to get whatever we possibly can need or want to know on the latest status, but it'll be interesting to see in the event that you do see election night, Donald Trump to win the election, plus the Senate and House controlled by the Republicans, does this actually pass involving safe banking during the lame duck session? One will only know come November 5th. But let's get some recaps of this week and bring in Anthony Vrell, TDR co-host here on a Friday morning. And good to see you. I know you've had an interesting, busy week as well, but what an experience that was.
Yeah, welcome back. It was created a lot of conversation around Twitter on the cannabis topics. I mean, safe is full-fledged topic conversation again. Thanks to you guys getting some really good sound bites with the likes of Warnock, Warren, Donalds, a lot of them.
Yeah,
it was good.
Yeah, I think us going back in April was actually a good thing because, the newness and the first time going is like wore off. And it's just like, okay, like there's some real key questions that we need to ask and make sure, like, good kudos and shout outs to Don Murphy and Gretchen that were there as well, just to kind of educate me on a lot of the stances of certain senators and congressmen and women as to, like, what they thought of safe banking, what their current stance is. But one thing's for sure. These people leave the room and you got to know what you want to know and ask the question you ask within a matter of like 3 seconds. And you got to walk and talk. But I know hopefully people got some great responses. But before we get into like some of the takeaways from that, I do want to talk about some industry news and begin this morning on Trade to Black podcast Into the Wire. Air Wellness made some very big news earlier this week where their president and CEO, David Gobert, actually resigned. He stepped down. What are you hearing here? Because I was a little surprised by this because I feel like the Air Wellness story has turned around since he was appointed as CEO and president.
Yeah, I mean, I would definitely say the story's turned around. There was some softness in their numbers the last 2 quarters. Their footprint, however, is stronger than ever, and it's a formidable footprint, especially when you talk about the Virginia license that they were just granted. That paired with PA, Florida, and Ohio, and the rest of the footprint. The only thing that I could really infer here, and this is just my opinion, is that David's pedigree coming from high fashion and retail with LVMH and Neiman Marcus, it wasn't translating into the cannabis space. Like I said, that's complete speculation. That's the only thing that I can really read between the lines. Every time we've talked to David and had him on the show as it relates to earnings, he's a sound fundamental understanding of what's going on around the space. Under his watch, they brought Kiva to Florida, which I think was a master stroke in bringing a good brand into the space that was already established, that would resonate through the Florida market. He's grown the footprint under his watch. I mean, I know they also have some pretty big names deeper in the bench. Most notably, I think Jamie Mendola, their chief business development officer, has been instrumental in a lot of this stuff. I have to just assume it was deferring opinions within the organization.
Yeah.
And they just want to put in somebody that's a tactical cannabis name that's built in a nationwide footprint. There's going to be a lot of work that's going to need to go in and expertise deployed within the Air footprint, especially as it relates to Florida flipping adult use and building Virginia from the ground up.
Do you believe, Anthony, that cannabis companies or CEOs of cannabis companies of course they need to obviously have a background in cannabis, but should these companies that are hiring CEOs from outside the space, kind of like David's background, should be running cannabis companies?
Yeah, I don't think there's an argument that they shouldn't be. You can take people from other business disciplines, and I mean, at the end of the day, with the nuances and outside of the nuances from cultivation, cannabis is a CPG and marketing business. It's also a business with a heavy degree of legal and compliance that's involved. Do I think that it helps coming from cannabis? Sure.
Of course.
I think that you could probably take a top executive from somewhere like M&M's Mars or someone from AB InBev and put a couple Harvard MBAs around them. And could you create a business that's going to generate a profit? Sure. Is it going to have the best cannabis in the world? Probably not. But you can hire people to do cultivation. You can't really hire people or teach the expertise that's needed to dial in supply chains, operate in a highly regulated market, as well as bring state by state operations online, and then bring them all into harmony, centering back into your balance sheet to create a profitable enterprise.
Yeah. Fair enough. I like the answer. It's very calculated, but I'll take you for it. But yeah, I think, ultimately at the end of the day, I think the question goes, of course, you want to have somebody with a cannabis background, but let's face it, this plant is old, but the business side is new. And where do you find a lot of talent, with those years of experience? But interesting to see. I know Matt Darren actually retired. Does he stay retired for a while, or just people start recruiting him, knowing that, look, it's just like sports. And if there's one coach that removes, you start to speculate whether or not this could happen with other companies. But I'm not saying I know anything, because I don't. And I'm not, saying that's going to happen. But, it's a valuable name as a free agent right now. And you're curious to see as to how some of this stuff will unfold in the next.
Spoke to him yesterday, and I can assure you that is not in the cards.
No? Okay.
No.
Fair enough. All right. So when I look at this week, as we look at DC recap, two people that I spoke to actually in your own backyard, I should say, in your home state, Congresswoman Laurel Lee and Congressman Byron Donalds out of Florida. And really, both of them were saying that, look, I'll be surprised if Amendment 3 passes. I wanted to get your reaction to that.
Good for them. They can have they can have their deferring opinion. That's contrary to popular belief. I mean,
yeah,
no one ever made a bad, I guess, move out of being a contrarian. I thought Byron Donald's response to you was very calculated and very informed. He spoke about veterans. He spoke about the opioid crisis. He spoke about cannabis as an alternative. He also stayed completely center and said that he wasn't ready to give his opinion if he was going to vote yes on Amendment 3. He has had some spats with Governor DeSantis. I also do think that he is very aligned with the GOP party of Florida for obvious reasons, as he's a young politician. And I mean, you can't really start pissing people off too much that early in the game. So, I mean, does he fall in line and vote no on 3? It's yet to be determined, but he did not come off as a full-blown prohibitionist. He also did use blunt and was self-aware enough to be like, well, no pun intended. That's good to see an element of, let's say, just realness from a politician. But I can take his answer at face value. It was a very political answer, but with the caveat of it was well informed. And it seems like he does know a bit about the topic at hand.
Did you get a chance to see my conversation with Senator of Alabama, Tommy Tuberville? I thought he was good too with some of the stuff, but clearly he does not believe in Congress, does not believe in the current administration, doesn't know how people would reelect or vote for these people in the election coming up. But he believed it was just, as much as I kept hearing more and more and more about how Republicans do have enough vote, and this falls on the shoulders of Chuck Schumer, there's some grayness involved towards that. But I will say the one thing I did hear consistently is that the root cause for a lot of this stuff as to why it won't get a floor vote right now, again, goes back to Chuck Schumer. I heard that on both sides of the equation, whether it was in front of the camera or behind the scenes. Yeah, I know. Not sure.
I think if you want to look at it objectively, not on either party lines, Republicans have controlled the houses of government. Nothing's gotten done. Democrats have controlled the houses of government. Nothing's gotten done. If you want to come out with a statement saying that the United States government from a legislative perspective is completely dysfunctional right now and very good at not getting anything done, that's a safe assumption. You can't blame either side of the aisle. And I think Jeff Schultz nailed it yesterday when he came out on Twitter and gave his 2 cents as to why SAFE is being held up. There's language that some people want in for the social equity component, as well as HOPE, which then gives people heartburn on the other side of the aisle. We had Section 10 that then got massaged. And to be honest, there's a lot of conjecture flying around and there's a lot of people pointing fingers.
Yes.
The only way to find out who is for it and who is actually against it is to bring the damn thing to the floor for a vote.
Yeah.
No one's going to be able to hide. They're going to have to vote yes or no. And we're going to be better off for it. If the Republicans are completely lying to our faces and the ones that say they are for it and the ones that say they truly aren't against it do vote no, we finally know that they're full of shit. There was a unanimous, or not unanimous, but there was a large amount of Republicans, I think it was yesterday, that voted against the Doobie Act. And people were saying, well, this is a great example of Republicans are not good for cannabis, and Republicans are not going to vote in favor of cannabis. So I actually looked at the subcommittee. Ron Johnson, James Langford, Mitt Romney, Rick Scott, Josh Hawley, Roger Marshall.
Mm-hmm.
Those are the names that we constantly see in the prohibition conversation. They happen to all be on this committee. And the only Republican that did vote in favor of the Doobie Act was Rand Paul. Not a surprise. These guys are all either no unsafe, they're anti-medical cannabis. They're also a big advocate of cannabis as a gateway drug, being Mitt Romney. And Ron Johnson sponsored Ron Johnson was a co-sponsor on 3 hemp bills. So you can understand why they were all against anything that was cannabis related. These are not more of the center-leaning minds in the Republican Party. These are primarily voices of prohibition, and they all just happen to be stacked on that Homeland Security Committee that voted for the Doobie Act.
Well, I just think I found it interesting when Tuberville told me the other day that, I think Schumer's afraid of some of his guys taking something away from him. And if he presents this vote on the floor, if you haven't gotten a chance as to what I'm referring to, then make sure to check out the video. But I thought that was some pretty open dialogue conversation, which makes me believe that, like I said, members of Congress are pointing the finger at the Senate and vice versa. But the one thing consistently I've heard is that, look, there are 59 votes. This could get a floor vote right now, but there's reasons why, and it relates to Schumer. I know, Gretchen, you're in with some pretty heavy comments.
There's 59 votes, we're in trouble.
Yeah. Right. I get that. But, at the end of the day, it's very complicated. It's not as easy as it looks right now. But one thing I have learned this week is Senator out of New Jersey, Cory Booker, has actually, from what I'm hearing, is changing his stance and would like to see SAFE to pass. Reasons why is because the amount of pressure that he's getting from different business owners, whether they're executives, consumers, you name it, but tons of pressure from dispensary owners in the state of New Jersey. And now I've heard that actually he's changed his stance and would like to have this passed. So on that note, I wanted to bring in our guest here today, actually is a New Jersey cannabis dispensary owner, Dr. Alyza Beast Brevard-Rodriguez, to the podcast. Good to see you. Happy Friday morning. How are things?
How's it going?
Happy Friday. Thank you for having me, gentlemen.
Yeah, and got a chance to meet you when I was in Washington this week. But first up, I think it's important for our audience just to have a little bit of your background. Like, you're a military veteran. You raised, what was it, $1.3 million, if I'm correct? Maybe tell your story as to how much money that was raised, the communities that you received the money from, and then just the challenges that you're currently facing right now when it comes to a lot of the red tape, given the current cannabis laws within your home state of New Jersey.
Absolutely. So I spent 10 years as a military police officer, and during COVID, I had my last tour, combat tour, where I got injured. And that reignited my use with cannabis as a consumer. After that, New Jersey was going rec. I decided to add it to my already existent arm of a wellness business. I own like a yoga studio. So I entered as a business owner, and the whole journey has just been turbulent, trying to get the licensing. Raised $1.3 million of only Black and brown dollars. And that was intentional to show that the extension of wealth can go beyond myself. It could support our communities, that we could do the work within our communities, by offering equity to others. It was very intentional. And we've been surviving for 30 months in this process in New Jersey. And we are at a point where we cannot sustain anymore. 30 months. I've been out of the military for 24 months. I've been in this process longer than that.
Wow.
So what is the main roadblock that you're hitting with getting this business, let's say, open? Is it receiving a CO from the city? Is it the licensing heads at the cannabis offices in New Jersey? Like, what is creating that roadblock?
Every hurdle at every level has been a roadblock. And what ends up happening is, over time, the time is what becomes impactful, because you're paying whole cost, right, for leases on spaces that, if there's challenges with zoning, so going to planning boards. And then if you're in a major city that's a municipality, generally they have a more challenging process for permitting. You're dealing with inspectors. So there's the convoluted process on the municipal side, and then there's the state side. And then a lot of times they don't talk to each other. So that's 30 months. That's what we come up with.
That does not surprise me whatsoever, especially being in Washington. It gives you a taste as to how there's so much broken communication amongst, political parties. And I can't imagine a lot of the stuff that you're dealing with right now. So you raised $1.3 million. This has been a struggle basically for 30 months. So, if nothing changes within the next 3 to 6 months, what do you think then happens?
We're placed in a tough position. Just yesterday, I listed my home. I have one home that I had purchased as an investment property. This are real people's lives. I am lucky to be in a position where I've used a lot of my military benefits. I have my doctorate because I use my GI Bill. I've used my VA loan. But if we don't get safe passed, that becomes another issue. If I do get my doors open, the first thing I need to do is pay off my mortgage because I'm getting paid from a cannabis company and I have a VA loan that's federally backed. So, if we can't get to the finish line, it'll be a tragic story about, a veteran. I gave so much of my life to this nation to not be able to get to the finish line for a couple of dollars, or, this person getting it off of their desk to then this person's desk to this person's desk would be really a shame.
Yeah.
What were you able to speak with Senator Booker about? Or how did that conversation go?
So I've spoken to his office multiple times. I've actually had sit downs with them, and they have basically said that on the Senate side, there's not anything that they can do in terms of dealing with the state. However, from a safe perspective, that's where they have more involvement. And I just wanted to raise awareness that in his home state, something that he advocated for, this is the real challenges on the ground. Our state is leading in trying to ensure that we have equity, that we have representation amongst minorities, women, veterans, even LGBTQ folks. I fall in line with every single one of those identifications. And the fact that I can't get to this finish line, like I said, is just really, really a shame.
Wow, that's interesting. Look, I know that you and I were in the Dirksen building trying to get through to some senators. Arns, I want you to bring up some of the footage. This is an interesting one, Alyza, when we saw Senator Cory Booker come out of the office here. But you want to press play? And Alyza, maybe walk us through some of the conversation that was taking place, because this is you coming in to the camera right here. So what were you asking him here in this particular case?
Absolutely. So I just shared that I was a constituent from Jersey City, and I understand that his office is limited in what they can do in terms of in my state. However, that he really needs to be an advocate for SAFE, that there's this misconception that it's only wealthy investors that are going to benefit from this, but that it's hurting us. And the fact that, I'm a veteran, I explained my VA loan, I explained being able to have access to capital and being able to sustain. And then once we even get to sustainability, to be able to grow and to be able to be major players in this market. And he expressed that he is on our side, that he wants to bring this to the table, and that he is going to give us a positive vote. He connected me with his office. But at this time, I'm still in the same position, and I'm still with closed doors.
Yeah. What do you think? You think he's serious that he actually wants us to get a floor vote eventually? And not eventually, but do you think he wants to get a floor vote now? Do you think his stance has changed? You can take down the footage, Arns, and bring up Anthony back up. You think he's changed?
Cannabis is a conversation that's a priority. I think that's the problem. And more folks need to go and really amplify this narrative and this conversation so they understand how critical it is, because this lame duck session is our green light.
Well, I think what I hear time and time again is just that there's bigger priorities. That I get. This is a bill that was proposed 10 years ago. 10 years ago. So I think obviously the conversation needs to be had to say, you know what, enough's enough. There needs to be change. And like stories like yourselves, that's crazy to think that you've invested that kind of money, have yet to have been able to open up the doors. And quite honestly, the great American dream won't even become a dream before you even get a chance to open up your doors, which is crazy. And this in a state that happens to be, Senator Booker has basically said I'll lie on the floor before they, safer to pass based on social, equity and reform. And everything I see that you know, represent is everything that he is basically communicating to the cannabis audience. So a lot of questions need to be asked, but most importantly, a lot of changes need to be made and made fast, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah. So if there's as far as like people that want to reach out, contact you, any information for and along those lines, where can they reach out to you? Or if there's anything that you want to basically support as far as any nonprofits or anything like that, where can they find you, Alyza?
Absolutely. So they can stay connected with me on Instagram at beast.rod, R-O-D. I also share a lot of the journey that we've been going through on TOSD_worldwide. That's our dispensary. And we've been really transparent in our journey and our process. And, you know, I write a weekly blog that just explains what this is so that people understand this is real lives here. So I just appreciate the time, gentlemen, and I hope that our senators and our congressmen and everybody down in DC gets it the hell together.
Yeah.
Do you have a timeline? Do you have a timeline for opening those doors and getting it operational, or is it kind of in limbo right now, as far as the process goes?
Well, the threat of the business is that if we don't open in the next 2 weeks, we will be in danger of going bankrupt. That's truly the position that we're in. So our hope is to open by mid-October. We have a fully built out dispensary. It's absolutely beautiful. It is an integration of wellness and luxury and education. I also work as a professor. So, you know, we really want to contribute to breaking the stigma, getting veterans the medicine that they deserve, and just really diversifying this market the way that the black market is always looked.
Yeah.
Alyza, what is the name of the actual dispensary and where is it located? What's the address in Jersey City?
It's called The Other Side Dispensary. It's also, we also have a consumption lounge endorsement. So that's to come, but more state issues on that. And our location is 36 Congress Street in Jersey City Heights.
Okay. Good to know. Listen, I love the story. And I love just meeting you and hearing stories like this, but yeah, it's a challenging story to say the least, but you know, at the same time too, it's just, we have to have conversations like this to push it forward. But most importantly, good for you to actually go to Washington and make a point. But, you know, I know there's a lot of people that comment here and will actually want change. And I'm going to continue to say this, that anybody that's interested in this space, whether you're an investor, a consumer, an executive, or just basically have any sorts of jobs, make an effort, whether it's next week or 2-3 months down the road, go to Washington and, you know, push forward. Like Don Murphy is available at all the time, along with Gretchen. And this is kind of the things that we need. We need more attention and support for the overall industry to create awareness, because this has not been a priority for them, because there needs to be more support and I think more representation for the overall industry. But it's not as easy or hard as it looks. It's actually real simple. Just get to Washington. You got the people to navigate and then tell your story that pertains to it. But I wish you all the best. I hope nothing but great things for you next month. Please keep in touch, because I'd love to get an update on as to how things are progressing with the overall business, and keep working hard. Okay.
Thank you so much, gentlemen.
All right. Thanks a lot. I appreciate your time. Yeah. Great person. Really great person. On that note, I want to bring in Guap, who was filming, and you had a lot of great conversations with Alyza while we were there. Good to see you, my friend. And great to see you in Washington this week. Good job shooting the cameras. Whether it was in front or behind a person, the idea is that, you know what, you kicked ass, and I'm very, very impressed with your camera work. So there you go. But long story short, I know you and Alyza, Dr. Rodriguez, I should say, had some conversations while I was doing some of the interviews off to the side, but fascinating story to say the least, and gives you a kind of a real reality of the current times. But one thing that we did learn, Guath, and we heard in the hallways, is that Senator Booker has changed his stance and would like to see this get a floor vote. I think if there's anyone that probably is in Schumer's ear more than anyone as pertaining to this, it's obviously Booker. Now it's just like, let's see what you got and see what can happen. But I thought it was interesting.
Yeah, I mean, big ups to Alyza and yourself, Chad. I mean, if anyone watches that full video, and go watch it right now, Chad was fearless, guys. I mean, I was cringing a little bit at times, and I was just like, all right, let's do it. Let's talk to Warnock again, you know.
I'm not going to lie. That Warnock thing, I was a little frustrated the first day before lunch, because I was like the hallways were empty. And then it was funny, 2 minutes before Warnock came out, Gretchen was nice, and she basically brought up her phone and I read the press release from Warnock's office from September 28th, 2023, citing that wealthy cannabis investors would benefit if safe banking were to pass. So that's when I approached him, and the look that he gave me and his eyes lit up like this, like it was almost like, if you're going to
safe banking, that point is infuriating. Safe banking will not make any wealthy cannabis participant any more wealthy.
Yeah.
Safe banking is going to help the bottom of the stack of the cannabis industry. It's going to help the social equity participants. It's going to help the independent store owners. It's going to help the smaller operators that don't have the capital to establish a banking relationship, because some of these banks are willing to bank cannabis businesses due to the just sheer volume of capital that they're putting inside the banks.
I love what Dan confirmed. There's wealthy cannabis investors out there. What?
Well,
yeah, good point.
Here's my take on that, because I was there. I mean, there was Alyza. I mean, when you hear her story, you just can't help but think, man, there is no better person to talk to Cory Booker right now about this.
Agreed.
She really represented herself and the industry exceptionally well. I love her. She was my absolute favorite person I met in DC, and wasn't even close. So she did her part. And just on the Warnock front, I mean, it's easily explained, right? If you don't have much of a cannabis program, you don't have a lot of constituents like Alyza who are in your community who have cannabis businesses, you can virtue signal and say all sorts of things to get the most amount of votes. That's what Warnock's doing for now. He may not be reelected. It's all a matter of time. It all moves too slow for everybody. But Cory Booker, if he can change his stance on it and go from I will lay myself down to hearing people like Alyza and maybe, who knows, pressuring Schumer a little bit, and I feel like we've actually done our part and not just got some good clips, but made a difference.
Gretchen, if you're watching this, I'd like to get your comments, but I'll ask this question to you, Anthony. I think Anthony had to log off for a second, but Gretchen, I'd love to get your response on how much power you think Senator Raphael Warnock has on SAFE from getting a floor vote, because again, what we learned this week is that yes, Booker has changed his stance, but it almost seems like there's a new Cory Booker involved in this, and it happens to be Reverend Raphael Warnock. And I did comment. She writes 0. You want to elaborate off of that, Gretchen, so I can actually
he's a
share
junior he's a junior senator from Georgia. Chuck can. Here's what I want to say, because I saw a ton of the back and forth on SAFE. I know we sort of ignited a bit of a SAFE shitstorm again on Twitter. When you look at the full clips, you can tell the blame game's in full effect. So if you're a registered Democrat or you're a registered Republican and you're looking through those glasses, you're going to see what you want to see, right? And you're going to write what you want to write. The reality is this: if it was brought to a floor vote, they have to say yes or no. Are suddenly GOP people who are not co-sponsors, because they don't want to put their name on something that says cannabis, are they going to go against something that, once they refamiliarize themselves with the bill and their staffers are they going to really cast a no vote to go against Trump's support of safe banking?
Yeah.
So when we say they have the votes, it means if it actually was an up or down vote, would it cross the 60+ threshold?
Here's a great comment.
Gretchen and Don's calculation, yeah. But what what Democrats are standing behind, like Warren, who I thought represented herself very well. Man, you can tell you're in the presence of a good politician when you're like, yeah, I almost believe what you're saying. When she was giving her impassioned play, she was saying, for it to be filibuster proof, we need to have 60 co-sponsors.
Yep.
That's tough. And we've got people on the ground who are working hard to get that last one. But the idea that if you put it to a vote, it wouldn't pass or what have you, the way I'm seeing it right now, the Democrats have a choice, which is to take the W, have SAFE plus HOPE, which gives money to the states for expungements, do the federal decriminalization, do the social justice that you claim you want to do it. and you can use SAFE as a vehicle to get some of that. Sure, throw in the grams so some of my friends who have caught charges can own a gun. Give the GOP a bone too. Take the win, because otherwise you're running the risk of just ignoring the issue, hoping no one notices, losing the presidency, losing the Senate. That's not a good scenario either.
Yeah,
So
the thing is adding hope.
They play politics, and I hate it.
Adding hope loses you Republican votes. From what people say.
Yeah.
I get that.
Here's a question, Gretchen, if you're still watching. How close is Tuberville to signing up as a co-sponsor? Another comment comes down to this, is what Gretchen's saying. SAFE is coming down to, do Dems want a win in cannabis or not? And
Yes.
I think
It's
that's
true.
one of the questions I asked Tuberville, that in the event that you saw Trump win and control both the House and the Senate, do you think this actually sentiment changes and Schumer would get a floor vote to try to get this one last minute win? And he actually thought that something could get done. So that'll be interesting to see come election night. But again, we don't know that until election night and the results that happen. Tuberville is conservative from Alabama. I think he'd vote for it, but doubt he would co-sponsor. Maybe walk us.
That's a pretty solid take. I highly doubt a conservative from Alabama is going to co-sponsor. Yeah,
Exactly.
there you go.
Yeah,
Exactly.
So walk us through too, like in the event that JD Vance, gets on the same boat as Trump. Could we see him change his stance on all this? And if so, could we, if we got that last senator to co-sponsor, does that give us finally the green light to get a floor vote? Or is it still, up to Chuck Schumer that he can pretty much do whatever he wants to do at any given time? Like, how does that all work? Do you guys know?
Yes, there's a limited amount of time. And we heard that from everyone that we talked to. Look, we're in session for another week, then we're going out campaigning, then we're back for the lame duck. And, there's a lot of other things going on and a lot of other priorities. I don't know about you, but I am sick and tired of hearing that as an excuse.
I know.
You had 4 years. So, it's hard to hear SAFE continuing to be used as some sort of political football, trying to attach things to it, trying to use it as leverage. It's really tough to hear. But in terms of getting in the ear of some of the more powerful members of the Senate and Congress and reminding them how important this issue is, I think we did something really good this week.
Yeah, well, I don't know how much of an impact it'll be, but, I think not once, not twice, but 3 times. I think we went for lunch and I don't know, I got my second win, so to speak, when I saw just the look of Warnock's eyes. And then sure enough, and I know some of you said, I thought his team was going to basically tackle me. I think I was in that particular situation where it wasn't about me. It was everything and everyone that's associated with this industry. And the fact that these are elected officials, and you probably saw my comment where I said, look, I'm not saying you're right or wrong, but this is something that you basically, whether you want to say, okay, this isn't what I quoted, this is what my office quoted. The reality is that take accountability, make a comment on it all, and whether you're right or wrong, well, people can assess it from there. But wow.
Here's one more point I want to make, and it's not to make an excuse for all these guys, but they have 99 problems and cannabis ain't one, right?
Yeah.
And so the fact that you could just tell when you were talking to a senator or a representative who didn't know what safe banking even was or needed a reminder, right? And they're very good at coming up with answers.
Who you referred to?
Yeah, safe banking is what now? Says
Yeah.
John Kennedy. They're very good at answers to questions they don't know the answer to. And one of their go-to moves is to simply blame. Even when they know what it's about, one of their go-to moves is blame. So, when you watch the video, just recognize that part of it, and realize that, I was blown away with how many on both parties were unfamiliar that Trump even came out on cannabis. That's news to them right now. And we were breaking it to them. So will someone like a JD Vance come around? I mean, it's
Gretchen, do you think that Vance will come around? I'd love to get your response to that. But anyways, we could sit here and elaborate and speculate and all we want, but reality is that we just got to keep going and have conversations. Anthony, out of all the stuff that was basically created, some of the comments and questions that we asked, what do you think is the big takeaway that you saw from some of the responses that you heard?
No one knows what the fuck is going on.
Yeah.
Bingo.
Yeah. Pretty much.
It's a complicated political calculus. That's why it's much easier for us to take the stance on the show to say, whatever happens, happens. A lot of people in this industry have basically thrown their hands up on safe and just, they're tired of being let down on timelines or promises.
But
let it be a bonus. But I wanted to get a little more active than that out there.
Here's the thing. Chuck can bring it to a vote. Like I said, he brings it to a vote. Find out who's going to vote, who's going to talk the talk, and who's going to vote, who's going to not. I mean, there's nothing else.
Yeah. Well, one thing I did learn from Gretchen, like there's a lot of BEM members that would probably vote yes for it. They just don't want to co-sponsor this because they don't want their name attached to this bill forever, right?
Our first trip, I don't want to say that was a consensus, but that was a talking point.
Yeah.
Hey, this person would vote yes, but they don't want to even talk about cannabis because of their constituency and their base. This other GOP senator or representative, they're actually going to vote yes, and they're for it. They just can't afford to talk about it openly because of their constituents and their base. That tracks completely.
It's wild.
Now you got it. That's it.
Yeah. Everybody is in favor of this. I was busy, but there was some news that actually broke out, and I thought this was kind of like laughing in some ways, just how Warnock didn't respond whatsoever. I did actually misquote. Georgia does not. Yes, Georgia has a cannabis program. I said in actually one of the interviews that it does not. It has, yes, a cannabis medical program, a very limited one. You can understand, obviously, speaking at that pace in those short periods of times, there can be a couple of misquotes. But anyways, I wanted to correct that. But what was some of the news that you guys heard regarding Georgia? Some of the stuff this week while we were in Washington that kind of puts a pie in the face for Senator Warnock and how a lot of Georgians actually want this to pass. But Anthony, go ahead.
So from my understanding, Georgia said that they were going to allow pharmacies to dispense low-dose THC via their medical program. The DEA then, I think, wrote them a notice or an official notice or a letter saying, actually, no, you can't. And as of yesterday or Wednesday, one of the pharmacies in Georgia basically said, okay, we're going to do it anyway. Good luck. So it's a developing story. It's going to be an interesting story that will set precedent for, I think, what else happens in Georgia. I'm going to bet that the DEA walks into that pharmacy and shuts that shit down. I do not think that the DEA is going to just let a pharmacy go rogue and dispense medication that is against their well wishes. If the DEA doesn't enforce anything on that pharmacy, I think it's a very, very positive sign for everything that we're talking about from an enforcement standpoint.
Yeah.
Pay and Christopher Browdy, I think you're from Georgia as well, but Georgia has low THC only. Pay writes, I'm a Georgia medical patient. It's mostly just oil.
Yeah.
Edibles.
It's exactly what Florida was on the get-go.
Yeah. And
one of our state legislators owns a chain of pharmacies. Interesting.
It's total bullshit, because if you are truly a medical program, I'm not talking about the descheduler bus and the alternative to alcohol people. I'm talking about just purely medical. If you have pain or you have any of these conditions that could be positively impacted by cannabis, low dose ain't touching your back pain if you've been blown up by an IED. What the fuck are you doing down there? Sorry.
Yeah.
This DC trip got me a little fired up. But yeah, what's going on in Georgia is bullshit. What's going on in a lot of these southern states is total bullshit.
This is good.
Tank's right. It's obvious that the pharmacy owner doesn't care about any ramifications, or he's a very principled gentleman, which I respect him for. I can't sit here and think that nothing's going to happen.
Yeah.
Yeah. Something's going to go down one way or another, but
yeah,
I wouldn't want to be that pharmacy. That's right.
Well, as much as it was hard work and it was a lot of stuff that, look, whether you want to hear it or not, the reality is that you know what you know now. And it was a cool experience. But I will say, if there wasn't a recess with the election next month, I'd be back there again next month. So one thing's for sure. I don't know whether it's in Washington or Virginia. Where is ALJ hearing located? Do you guys know? The top of your heads? Is it in wherever it is?
I would have to assume it's in DC.
Okay. Well, either way, we will be there, and we're going to try to make, obviously, after the election, just monthly trips to Washington. I think that would be ideal, and one goal in mind, just to push it forward. Hopefully, we can help out in some sort of way. Cybin, psychedelic stock, is up 10% today. Wonder if there is some news triggering that. Interesting.
No, they just finally did their reverse split, so the flow's super low.
Gotcha. All right. I didn't get a chance to see the markets all that much this week, but was everything relatively flat?
So the market's rallying on the 50 basis point cut. Well, everything's rallying basically except cannabis.
Wonderful. Last Day Conformer says there's wealthy cannabis investors in this space. What? All right, gents.
What the tape is looking like now, but
thanks for having me on, gents. On the Follow the Journey. Let's put pressure on Washington. Absolutely, Dr. Beast. Love the name, and wish you nothing but respect and luck. I do not want to hear that this company has gone bankrupt. I think this dispensary has all the makings to kick ass, knowing her background, expertise, and being relatable to a lot of customers. So let's get something done. Biden screwed this up so bad.
I've got a quick mic drop in honor of Alyza. Whenever you guys are ready, I'll
let's do it. Arns, let's cue the music, buddy. After this, I'm going for a nap. I'm tired.
Yeah, right. It was a late night for me too. I think I got to my house at 1:42 a.m. After hanging around and talking with Gretchen for a while, which was awesome. But this one's from lyrics from On the Other Side, a song by the Gladiators. Just a little kumbaya. Music, flowers, and children will be there. That's where everyone will get their equal share. Say we don't want no warmongers over there. No gossiper, no traitor will be there. Say your hands and your heart have got to be clean to reach the other side of the mountain. And that's where we're all headed, folks. We're trying to get to the other side of the mountain. And if you stand up for what's good and what's right, I think we're really going to get there.
Well, sounds great. I think truthfully, the stories like Alyza's is the one that's really going to get us there. And it's the pressure. It's the pressure from the people that actually have established businesses that are ready to go. And what the fuck, man? This isn't like 5 or 10 grand invested. This is over $1 million. And I'm sure she's not the only story, but those are the types of stories that are going to push the envelope.
She is by far not the first person that I've heard of that story, unfortunately. That story has been popular for years in the cannabis space.
Well, I think we're on to something here. Alyza, we should actually connect after this, and we should actually get stories of every single business owner that relates to this and make a trip well in advance to Washington to draw more and more awareness towards this. That'd be great. If you had the great American dream of 15 to 20 people, we've got over, like, say, for example, $20 million invested in various businesses across the chain here with the people that are here today. What do you say to them? Anyways, my rant.
Yeah, Shad and I had a hard time not sounding like lobbyists or activists. I will admit, when the camera stopped rolling, I told that Donald's guy to check out the sidecar amendment that bans public use, because that was one of his concerns.
Yep.
As well as just really look deep at DeSantis's comments and he said he would. I mean, where everyone has to do their small part in all this, including the MSOs, and but everyone at home, write your congressman, tell them what you think.
Yeah, you're right though.
Than us.
You're right, though, as far as the fine line between lobbying and actually being a media company. The reality is that we cover the cannabis space. We want the cannabis space to grow. And I don't care whether it's the Congress side, Senate side. I'm not saying who's to blame. The reality is that where we are is where we are right now. So what is the solution that it basically gets us a floor vote and ultimately to pass? That's the goal to find out when we go there every single time. And I'll leave the lobbying up to other people, but I think that's what people need to know. And if it's a continuous conversation, then I think that only helps. But all right, gents, happy Friday. And looks like Mr. Rogers doesn't like bear hugs after last night, but the Jets got themselves a nice Thursday night win.
We did.
But what a week that was last week. Falcons beating the Eagles, the Raiders beating the Ravens. Like, it was
I saw somebody's fantasy football team that their entire starting lineup now is injured.
What?
Yeah. They had like Cooper Kupp, Puka Nacua, Jordan Love, Christian McCaffrey, literally top to bottom. Their Ferguson for the Cowboys, their entire roster top to bottom is injured.
There you go. How long's Ferguson out for? Do you know?
I'm not sure.
I did actually talk to a friend last night. He's in a pool of over 24,000 members in this eliminator pool.
Yeah.
And he said less than 20% after 2 weeks are left standing.
Week was crazy. Last week was like upset all over the place.
Would not pick the Ravens at home over the Raiders, but listen,
most people probably did.
Yeah, exactly. Don't forget to subscribe to our Baked In newsletter. Mr. Varel does an incredible job day to day on a lot of that stuff. Anything exciting that we pointed out today?
Yeah, the 50 basis point cuts.
Nice.
On the how that relates to stocks.
Yeah, if you want to get our takeaways as well, further to this from DC this week, make sure to subscribe to our Baked In newsletter to get some of the feedback that Anthony has outlined in our Baked In newsletter. QR code, bottom left-hand corner, also in the comment section. Smash that like button. Leave lots of comments and spread the word, baby. We need to keep the narrative going here for this space. But listen, enjoy your weekend. And don't forget to log on Sunday night. We got 5 new small cap stocks that me and TDR lead analyst Bill McFarland will take a look at. So find out who they are and let us know your comments on what you think of some of the companies that we're covering the small cap space. In the meantime, enjoy the rest of your weekend, gents. We'll see you back here Monday afternoon.
See everybody Monday.
Go watch that video.
Jay.
Lights out. Guerrilla Radio.
Hey everyone, thanks for watching our latest podcast. Lots of momentum building. You guys getting all excited? Leave comments below. Again, we want to take this viral. Smash that like button and make sure to click on that bell for all notifications as we start to bring on bigger and bigger guests. Don't forget to subscribe to our daily newsletter, the Baked In newsletter, by logging on to thedalesreport.com. And we want to take this viral, as I said, and make this community grow. So make sure to subscribe on that channel because we wouldn't be here without you. Thanks again, everyone, for watching.